It says here, I'm reading something that says that Clerks, Mallrats, and Chasing Amy's a trilogy. Thoughts?
No, they're just his first 3 movies because there's going to be 3 Clerks movies. They're not. They're
And
not.
there's 3 Jay and Silent Bob movies.
There's 2. So no, it goes Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, then Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
That's the
then
first
Clerks 2, then Jay and Silent Bob the reboot, right? So there's like 6 movies. Here we are, and welcome to an episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast featuring the progenitors of the Friday Night Movie. Our first guests of the year, our parents, Roger and Fanny, are here. Before I welcome my sisters, Mom and Dad, how are you?
I am super great. This is the start of a new year, which bodes well for marvelous things for the whole family and even the whole country and the whole world.
I am doing beautifully and buttery.
Very funny, Mom. So, Lily, how are you doing in the Canary Islands?
I'm good. I want to say that I am enthralled with this whole Meghan Markle and Prince Harry leaving the royal family thing.
I am.
Oh my God, me too.
I literally.
Me too. They're leaving the royal duties.
I don't care.
They're probably fed up with their...
Shy.
Wait, hold on.
You're the only one.
No, not only do I not care.
I didn't know about it.
I saw a thing in the Boston Globe the other day that said, "Oh, they're giving up their duties. Can normal people do that too? Can I give up going to work every day and doing the dishes and all the things?
Yeah, if you're rich and you're royal, you can.
And will I be lauded for that? I think it's ridiculous.
Maybe he'll lose his money.
I do not care
cut off.
what they do.
He is losing his money, and he's going to try and be, quote unquote, financially independent,
Yeah, it's not
which I think is hilarious.
It's not like he's starting a food truck.
Right. No, the
they're-
amount of jokes that this, in a time when our country could be at war with anyone, as Colbert said, multiple countries that start with Ira. So, to quote Colbert, I needed this news this week. Like, the amount of jokes
what's
just has...
the part that you like? That they're moving to our hemisphere? That... The fact that, no, I think my favorite part is the amount of zingers this has produced and jokes. And one of my two favorites are, and I will share them on Twitter, somebody said, wow, she really Yoko Ono that situation, which I thought it was hilarious. And someone else goes, oh, you guys were too racist to them. Now they're ours. Which I think the biggest revelation, though, is that Mom is finally going to get the Suits reboot spinoff that she always wanted.
Deserves.
Now they'll make a living for both of them.
I like how it says now they will have permission to work for money, as if woe is me, they were just being slaves working for free.
They sound like super cool people, but I just can't care. Or
I will just say,
Shy, don't you care for your fellow man?
Honestly, but again, Will and Kate are the ones that have to have the hard life now. They're the ones that have to do all that British stuff all by themselves. Now Harry and Meghan just get to chill
talk
out.
about selling out your sib. I mean, it's serious. And I just feel like if you're not interested, that's fine. Do yourself a favor and pay attention to the jokes.
Yeah, it's
providing great material.
It's as if you lived on the East Coast with your parents and your siblings just jetted off to other parts of the world.
Let's change the topic. Just change that.
Well, speaking of siblings and three
I
of
will
them.
say, though, out of the three of us, you are definitely the royal left holding the bag.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like one of the obscure princesses that no one's ever really heard of.
So, speaking of three siblings, let's talk about trilogies.
Oh, hi, Becky. How are you? I'm doing great. I'm just nursing a human and keep sustaining, her life with mine. But, I'm good. Anyways, now Trilogies.
Oh, Shy, how are you?
No one asked him how he is. That's not how the game works, Mom.
I'm breaking the rules.
I'm excited to talk about...
Harry or whatever his name is.
Mom is the...
Here, his name is Enrique in the news.
Really?
Guillermo and Enrique. You have no idea my confusion when I saw that in the newspaper here, and I was like, do they know they got their names wrong? They are referred to Príncipe Guillermo and Enrique.
And Enrique could be a Kiki.
It could be, or Kike. Yeah. That's their names, because that's Harry and William in Spanish. Ever to figure that out, though. I was like, just give them different names in different countries.
Well, speaking of trilogies, it's a perfect time for Mom to tell the story about Zeta Luis, her father, and how he interpreted the names in Star Wars.
I'm still laughing from the previous joke. Okay, so 1977, right, Roger? We went to see the movie when it opened. I mean, we just because we like science fiction, not because anybody knew what Star Wars was. And we're blown away, and we get home, and that's all we're talking about. I get a call from my dad from Puerto Rico, and he goes, "Oh, Fanny, we went to see this movie. It's amazing." And I go, "Really? Which one?" He goes, "Star Wars." And I go, "Wow, so did we." And he goes, "My favorite character is Arturito." Now, Arturito means little Arthur. And I'm going, "There is no Arturito in the movie." He goes, "Definitely there's an Arturito, and I love him." And I go, "There's no Arturito in the movie." And he goes, "Yeah, he's like a gold medal character.
No,
he's a robot."
That's C-3PO, Mom.
C-3PO.
No, gold. He goes, a gold
robot. C-3PO is the gold robot.
R2-D2
R2-D2 is blue.
Oh, right, the blue one, right. Sorry, I got the story wrong. So he goes, "It's this little..." Oh, right. He goes, "It's this little robot, and he's very cute." And I go, "You mean R2-D2? He goes, "Yeah, that one." It was very funny.
Okay, so trilogy.
Because he was seeing it with subtitles.
So trilogy.
And that's how they interpreted the subtitle, the name.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So we'll start with Star Wars, the original trilogy, and then we're going to go into more and talk about other elements of trilogies. But to our parents first, if you had to line up each of the siblings with one of the movies in each of the trilogies...
And I forewarn you that this comes from a WhatsApp chat that I had with Shy. And we have already...
So we're just curious, if you were to line us up, it doesn't have to be in birth order per se, which of the original Star Wars trilogy, don't mix up the other ones.
It has to be the original.
Yeah, the 1977, the one that started in 1977.
I thought about it a lot yesterday, but I didn't write it down, so hopefully I'll get it right. Do I do birth order or do movie order?
No, you can do whatever you want.
Okay, so I think that the first movie is definitely Becky. The rebellion, standing up against the Empire, just really.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite of the movies.
The problem is that could also be Lily. Like, don't mess with Lily.
Interesting.
She's like, and then of course Shy is the third one. Let's have a party. I get to see a Ewok village. Let's throw a party.
That's a great interpretation, Mom. That's not what I came up with.
The second one was just a little dark, and neither of you are that dark, although it is about a father and son relationship.
But Lily's very, very melodramatic, so it could be Lily.
It could be.
There's always a lot of drama.
But it's the first one is for two reasons. One is, Becky fighting the rebellion, and Lily, don't mess with me, I'm tough. And then Shy, definitely Return of the Jedi.
I see Lily as the second one because the second one is transformational. We've left this fantasy story of the good guys overcoming the bad guys, and we've entered into a world that we don't really know how things are going to turn out, and the whole second chapter ends with question mark after question mark after question mark. And to me, that is equivalent to Lily going off to Spain and transforming her life into
Lily, Dad is comparing you to Han Solo being in Carbonite, being shipped off by Boba Fett.
Accurate.
No, not
accurate.
No, on the contrary, it's Luke going into the swamp and learning how to be a Jedi.
How Luke persists through his various challenges. So that's where I see Lily lining up with having gone through the single biggest transformation in her life.
I'll give that to you.
Fascinating. Do you want to hear my answer?
Sure.
Yeah.
My answer was Shy's A New Hope because he's inspirational and he chimed in and whiny, which is accurate. So Shy's A New Hope because he's inspirational and whiny. I'm definitely I'm the sequel, and to me it's not just Star Wars. Like any good trilogy, you got inspirational and slightly whiny at the beginning. That's Shy. Then you have super fun but also really scary, which is me. And then the ending of a good trilogy is Beck, who's like a great closer, a little combo of everything, leaves you on like a good solid note, but you're also like maybe a little bit nervous how it's going to end up going.
And I might always want to throw a party, but if there's someone who could pull off a party on Endor,
it's Becky.
With Ewoks and all these different people, it's Becky. And when I think of Becky, I think of the Wicket, the Ewok. They do kind of look similar. And I feel like they came out around the same time.
A high level of cuteness.
Yeah, they came out the same amount of time, right? Wasn't Return of the Jedi around when Becky was born?
I don't know.
That is
Yeah,
true.
84?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Ooh,
Okay.
now everyone will know how old I am.
So okay.
So yeah.
Does anyone else want to try to pair us up with trilogy?
I'll be right back.
Okay. All right, so now what is your favorite non-Star Wars trilogy? All right, we're going to leave Star Wars as much as I want to talk about it forever. We'll come back to it. But what is your favorite non-Star Wars trilogy?
Well, for me, it's The Matrix. And again,
wow.
Yeah, the reason
They're
why...
coming out with a fourth one, so you can say trilogy till like now, and then soon it's not going to be a trilogy.
But that one is a
get it in there.
trilogy. I mean, that is a beginning, middle, and an end of a story.
Yeah, is that going to happen within the time of the podcast? So it's not...
when this airs, I don't think so.
I'm going to leave off the technicalities of fourth production. And in many respects, to me, The Matrix was the next Star Wars in terms of a transformational movie experience. The things we saw in Star Wars we had never seen before. The famous opening of the Star Destroyer coming over our heads. We all kind of ducked. And I think the bending of reality that we saw in The Matrix was similar.
That's true.
I can't remember other movies. I could look down that list where we were transported into an entirely different world where we didn't know the rules. And I think The Matrix did that. And I thought it did an amazing job. I know there's people who feel ups and downs about all of the movies. But I think the three movies, retain that same level of, hey, we don't know what the rules are. The famous line, there is no spoon.
That's true. And that effect, if you recall, even in a movie like Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, starring Rob Schneider, they did the Matrix jump kick effect where they rotated around. The using of those
Isn't
effects...
it in Shrek? It's in Shrek.
Yeah, I think it's in Shrek also, yeah. It was in everything ever since then.
Yeah.
And it will always be synonymous, that slowing down will always be synonymous with The Matrix. And you're right, that movie blew open special effects in a way that I don't think you'd seen in advance in a while. Yeah. Something that everybody started to do afterwards. That's a great...
So I think that for me, that's a very good point, because one of the things that make things great for me are when they're innovative and it's something you haven't seen before. I felt that way with, of course, the first Star Wars, and then the other ones were just great movies, and the first three. And the same thing with Matrix. So in terms of if you're going to put them up against other trilogies, they were so innovative and amazing. Now, there's also Terminator, which is, in its time, was scary. And then was it the second or the third one where they kind of morphed?
Second one.
It's the second.
That was also very innovative.
I gotta tell you, I recently rewatched both of those, and the effects of the second one hold up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're still great. It's
they're still great
movie.
movies.
Yeah.
They really do hold up. They're great movies. I think Lord of the Rings as a trilogy is a beautiful, amazing,
it's like a
true
masterpiece.
trilogy. The books are a masterpiece, and the movies really do it justice. They're beautiful.
All right, what about you, Lil?
Well, I would just have that was so fundamental in my childhood is Back to the Future. Those three movies.
That was fundamental in your childhood?
Fundamental.
What was fundamental?
Sure.
I remember watching
the amount
them,
of viewing. I saw the three of them, probably mostly the third, because the second one I really didn't understand. When the third was so fun.
The third is the one I've watched the most.
Exactly, as a kid.
Locomotive and Mary.
That's
the third one.
With Mary.
But the first one was fabulous.
the first one's, to me, also that's a masterpiece of a
I tried to get
film.
my kids to watch it last night, and instead they picked the live-action Lion King, which is, the parts that they add in terms of the characters, by the way, is good. But wow, they were just like, let's just make this longer. That was the
Like
main-
shot for shot, the same movie. It's
Just
just a
slower.
waste.
We turned it off after.
I'm going to try to reapproach them with Back to the Future again.
What?
So wait, back to the Future. Back to the Future, Lily.
Yeah.
So when you say fundamental, what is it? The characters, the story? You said number of viewings. Why'd you watch it over and over?
Probably Marty McFly. Just watching him. He was funny. He was, I've always been a romantic, so I was fascinated with his girlfriend situation. It was confusing when they changed the actress. I remember being a kid. And
That's funny because in my mind it was just always Elizabeth Shue.
But it wasn't. And so I remember Leah Thompson is so great as the mom, and everything. There's everything about it, but I think it's his
Plus,
sort
it was
of
also
hero's
as I feel
journey.
like as little. Not to interrupt, but I feel like as a little kid, the way that they portrayed the future and the way that they did the period in the past was so fascinating. It was so exciting to see that, and it was relatable to a little kid.
The pizza, the mini tiny pizza,
the little bit that's
giant pizza. When you're a kid in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, mind blown. You don't need much more than a hoverboard and a gigantic pizza in seconds.
When they come in with the tiny pizza, I'm like, who's gonna eat all that food? And then it blows up to a giant pizza. You're like, that's the best joke I've ever seen. The picture is amazing,
and it's for the minds of 10-year-olds. This.
There's no doorknob, so he doesn't know how to open the door.
Because everything's voice activated.
Yeah.
Which is just such and maybe it doesn't hold up. I don't know if your kids eventually will find it but it's everything's voice activated now, and
how crazy is
won't
this?
Find that funny.
We are 5 years past the future of Back to the Future. 2015 is when Back to the Future Part 2 takes place.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah. And in some sense, some things never happen. In another sense, we have iPhones, and we're right now having this video chat, and it's way better quality than the one where Flea tries to get him to put his thing in the fax machine, put his credit card in whatever that thing is.
Right.
All right.
But I think Becky's right, though. I think that's a great point. I was enamored with the idea of the future, too.
All right, Beck, your non-Star Wars trilogy.
That would be my favorite. This is where I have a hard time because I look at the list we've compiled, and I agree that I look at the list and I really think to myself, out of a trilogy, there's always one that just kind of isn't that great, and so it's hard to say, oh, this is my favorite, this is the one that stays with me the most. I agree that Lord of the Rings is actually the most solid of any of these lists, where all three are truly phenomenal movies, as much as I do love Back to the Future, but still. But I will actually say, I think that if we can agree that Toy Story is a trilogy and not a 4-part, I think that is some of the best storytelling, character development, and full arc when you look from stories 1, 2 to 3, the arcs of your main characters really coming full circle, and then 4 unravels that, and I hate it. But the first 3, if I count that as a trilogy, it's wholly satisfying, and it starts, and for me it's also very personal because it starts in my childhood and ends when I have children in my life, in the timeline of my life, and that's like a
very beautiful.
That's so cool.
Really special thing to be able to map that with my own life.
Right. So
I think there should be a rule that after the trilogy should end at a 3.
What's a 4-parter that we're like, it's so good?
I don't know, like what
Lethal Weapon 1 through 4. Love it.
Okay,
love it.
They're fun.
I'll just say mine is Lord of the Rings because of Becky's point. I think it holds together quality-wise. Back to the Future would be my second one, but Lord of the Rings. But let's talk about those non-trilogies, the ones that are 4 or 5 or 6 parts, but we only count the first 3 for a variety of reasons. What are some of the ones that come to mind other than Toy Story? Dad, do you have one that comes to mind?
No, not at the moment.
Does Jaws count?
Does what?
Jaws count?
Mom, you count Jaws 1, 2, and 3 as the good trilogy?
No, there is no trilogy. Anything but 1 is horrible.
No, I'll give an example. Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade. You don't really want to count, but if you don't count the
Shia LaBeouf one,
if you don't count the Shia LaBeouf one, then that is a trilogy.
Temple of the Secret Skull. What is that? The movie.
Kingdom of the Secret.
Crystal Skull.
See, I happen
Temple
to like
of the Secret of the Crystal Skull.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Those could be it.
I happen to love the third one. I'm not sure I like the second one, but I love the first and the third one.
Oh, okay.
So how does that work?
So if you could, well, that's another category of trilogy where you'd vote one movie off the island.
Yeah, definitely voted off the island.
It's like Pitch Perfect. 1 and 2 are perfect, and 3, just vote that one off the island. I think Temple of Doom is the most dated of the Indiana Jones. It's kind of cringe. It's awesome, but it's also cringeworthy. I caught it on an airplane the other day. There's some really just out of step with our current movie making, racial characterizations and things like that. Do you have another one, Lil?
Well, I think Becky's, I had put it on the list because Toy Story should only be considered up to 3. And then Alien, Terminator, Die Hard.
Yeah, Alien, people malign Alien 3. I actually love Alien 3 because...
You compare it to the other stuff that's been made.
Especially when you compare it, but at least at least it continues the story and ends the story. That could be the end of the Alien, the Ripley story, if you didn't clone her and turn her into an alien beast.
Right.
I read a really funny interview with Joss Whedon recently where he made fun of that 4th one, which I think we all saw in the theater together.
Well, you're pushing the limits of story development and character development, I think, once you get past 3, and maybe with the exception of Die Hard, but Die Hard is essentially the same movie that's just been moved to different settings. So I don't see I can't remember much development of characters in that. With all these other 4th quills, they just can't sustain the creativity, and there are so many more awful ones than there are ones that are palatable to watch. How about when aliens became aliens and cowboys, or aliens and predators, or something? That thing with
aliens and predators.
You're mixing up franchises, but your point is held up.
I think actually Cowboys and Aliens and Predators would be a better movie than any of the actual movies that were made. 100%. That is right on it. Like, wouldn't you watch Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford fighting aliens and predators?
No.
That would. I would.
Yes.
I'd watch that more than any of the movies they made. Yeah, I think you make a good point. If you're making a series of movies and you don't have a plan going in, like Harry Potter is 7 movies, and aside from the overly long 7th, 8th, whatever combo movie, there's a plan there. It's following the plan, so it works. But when you make 3 and the story's supposed to end at 3, and then you tack on a 4th, you better have you better not do something like they did with Toy Story, where you undo what happened in the other 3 movies.
Though I will say that Mad Max did a better job than Alien.
Oh,
definitely.
whoa.
Definitely.
Mad Max
curveball, Lil.
teases out the
Wow.
story.
Well, that's
Me too.
I think those trilogies get more credit, like Toy Stories, because they're starting off with a single script, and then they have to invent the next story. And inventing the next story, they extend it and they develop the characters and they enrich it. In some respects, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Hobbit, they're fully formed works that someone has decided to cut them into 3. So they have to be together. They were one story to begin with. But whereas, go back to Toy Story, it's much more challenging, I think, much more of an accomplishment to take a single good story and then develop it, twice.
Which I give Mad Max quite a lot of credit, because they spun out something that had a trilogy, was done.
Well, it also started, if you ever seen the first one, it's this very slow, grim 70s revenge cop movie with a little bit of futuristic biker future stuff. And then they blew the world into that huge apocalyptic story of the Road Warrior and then the Thunder. And then
go watch
Fury Road.
The first Terminator again. To me, the first Terminator, which I saw recently, kind of lines up.
It does. It's a bit slow.
And the special effects are just hokey. I mean,
wow. That's a great analogy,
Dad. In
Dad.
the context of its time. If you remember going to see it when it first came out, we were terrified.
Put it in the context of its time, but I see what Dad's saying.
The style of the storytelling.
So that's another kind of trilogy when we're talking about it. A trilogy that starts relatively small, Terminator 1, Mad Max, makes arguably a better movie in the second one, Road Warrior, Judgment Day, and then kind of bumps its way to the end, Rise of the Machines, Thunderdome. Thunderdome has its redeeming qualities, but it is not that second one. Some people might argue about the Godfather, but I am a staunch Godfather 1 believer. I still think the Godfather Part 1 is the best in that series by far.
Agreed.
I'm not into the half and half movie of the Godfather 2.
But again, you're really talking about the book or books that Mario Puzo wrote, as opposed to someone who's taking a thought and inventing, inventing a whole new version of that world. I think
the Mario Puzo book actually ends at the end of The Godfather Part 1. He is essentially, if I recall, it implies he goes legit. It's like a happy ending. And then they created this sort of continuing story of Michael Corleone in the films, where he goes down to Cuba and all of that other stuff.
Sean, you're going to get a bad reputation.
What?
You just admitted to reading a book.
I read that Mario Puzo book, I think, in like 1998. I don't think in 1998.
Careful. People are going to start to call you a reader. Careful.
Did I have to bribe you or somehow that you read?
What do you guys think about trilogies where it is a trilogy? Becky, you probably know the term, but it's more artistic than story driven. So the Cornetto trilogy, the Man with No Name trilogy, the Sergio Leone.
Don't know what that's called.
But the movie where the movies are not a continuing story, but they are a trilogy in the sense that it's the director's work. So
right,
Cornetto,
it's like the authorship. It's like his authorship.
So the Cornetto trilogy would be Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and World's End. And then
a bad example of that is The Hangover.
No, those are three movies that tell a story.
No, that's an actual trilogy.
Why? They just keep going on trips. It's not.
No, but the movies I just mentioned are all different characters.
Different characters, different worlds, not connected.
Okay.
But it's the same director who's kind of like creating. It's like a genre or a style within. He's like creating his own. I don't know.
And then the Man with No Name, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Fistfull of Dollars, and A Few Dollars More.
Right.
And then I think, tell me if you buy this, guys. I think Inglorious Basterds, Django Unchained, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are
period pieces.
They're period pieces that mess with the actual real life history ending.
Well, a historical reimagining of of the facts.
They're like Tarantino meat
I
drive.
think that's actually a great Tarantino meat drive. I think that's actually I think that's great. I totally, when I was reading your show notes and I read that, I was like, oh, I get what he's doing
But
here.
would you say the same thing with like Reservoir Dogs and maybe 2 other movies? I mean, he does
Reservoir
stuff
Dogs,
like that.
Pulp Fiction, and
Jackie Brown?
I don't know. I don't know if Jackie Brown fits that, but definitely Reservoir Dogs.
But then you're just, I mean, I think that extrapolates
His
into
body of
saying
work.
that it's a, like Tarantino-esque. Like that's his
Well, but those
type
two
of
take place in the same
film.
universe.
Oh,
do.
Mario came up with
do.
one, and when I was talking to my brother Mario, he said that the movie Avalon takes place in Baltimore.
Oh yes,
and then
that's
he
the
mentioned
Barry
2
Levinson.
other films.
Barry Levinson world.
That's
You're
the
right.
Barry
right.
Levinson trilogy. It's Diner, Avalon, and Liberty Heights.
He couldn't remember the name of the third one. So
Liberty
then I
Heights. Yeah,
said,
you're
you
right.
really
That's-
need to invite him on the podcast because he's like an
That is-
encyclopedia.
That's the Barry. I believe that's the Barry Levinson.
And that's the
Baltimore
type of
trilogy.
trilogy you're talking, like this non-traditional trilogy where things are happening, they're connected in some way. Now, I don't know if
In this case, the
Tarantino,
city
Well, they're
is a
autobiographical.
character.
They're all autobiographical, I believe.
in that sense, but
Well, then that would be the same thing with some of Neil Simon's work that was made into movies.
Yeah.
Oh no! Wait a
You've
minute.
got
It actually argues
Brighton
that
Beach.
Tin Men is the other one, not Liberty Heights. Although Liberty
Heights.
Heights does fit into his Baltimore saga, but it says
Absolutely.
this movie Tin Men is the trilogy. But it is 4. It is 4 movies ultimately that go into that one. All right.
And then
let's-
you've got Brooklyn, Brighton Beach. What was the other one, Ross?
Lost in
Yonkers.
Yonkers and
Lost
Biloxi
in
Blues
Yonkers.
The
are
World 2 one when he's the bomber pilot.
those are Neil Simon.
Yeah, Neil Simon had the same idea where there's 3 films.
Biloxi Blues is
Biloxi Blues.
Biloxi Blues is not a bomber pilot. It takes place in training. I think they
I
never
think,
end
yeah.
up going to war.
Matthew Broderick.
Matthew
Right.
Broderick, yeah.
Uh,
All right,
but
well,
it's-
let's play a little buy rent meh with some of our trilogies before we get to our shout outs and recommendations. All right. The 3 Star Wars trilogies, back to Star Wars. So episodes 1 through 3, episodes 4 through 6, episodes 7 through 9, buy rent meh.
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Can I buy the box set?
No. What?
What?
Well, just which one?
I just want to buy the box set.
No, Mom. Yeah.
Which box set? Which
Of the trilogy.
Just tell us
of
the name
Star
of
Wars
it.
trilogy.
No,
Of the
each
original.
one is an entry in buy rent meh.
I
You
know
can't
you-
buy
I know.
all 9 movies
But
for
you
this
can
game.
do one without the other 2.
No, you
I
get
think-
to pick
I think-
3. We're saying that you get to pick 3.
At a time. So like
Yes.
one group here.
I'll
is
make it
1
easy
through
for
8.
you,
by
Mom.
group.
The
Oh,
I
original
thought-
3 is
I
the
thought-
buy.
Okay.
The last 3 is the rent because we hate Ryan Johnson, and the meh is the 1, 2, 3 that Lucas made with the invention of CTI.
Yes, that's the correct answer, Lily.
Okay, so buy
This
the
was a
original 3 that Lucas made.
I found the first 3, even as bad as the Ryan Johnson version was, 2 movies in one. The first 3, I'll never reconcile the digital army of droids and Samuel Jackson being a character in outer space.
Oh, no, when I meant the first 3, I meant the original from 1977 to 84.
This is also one of the things that I feel like, thank you, Lucas. Like, it's who's on first when I talk about this effing movie with my husband. Like, it's a bit, and I'm just like, no, not the first 3. And I'm like, God damn, why couldn't he have just
Episodes
made it
4,
easier?
5, and
what
6.
bothers me a lot
I will buy episodes 4, 5, and
Yes,
6.
Mom,
Does
that's
that
the correct
help?
answer. Yes.
that
we know.
episode 4 is my favorite, and I often just refer to it as A New Hope, and I get so much flack for that. People are like, just call it Star Wars. I'm like, well, there's 9 of them, so how do you know which one I'm talking about?
When you say just Star Wars, everyone knows you mean the first movie.
Well, I call it A New Hope.
So do I.
Okay?
I think that's a
what I
perfectly
refer
good
to
way to describe it.
So do I.
So when I was saying the first 3, it's because it's the first 3 I saw, and therefore it is
The best.
that trilogy is the one I would buy because I could watch it all the time. But also, you know, the problem with like Back to the Future is that I could definitely watch one and I would rent those. And no. You're giving me a
I don't
look,
know what
Roger?
Mom's. I don't even know
Let's
which
just
episodes
talk about
Mom's
Star Wars.
talking about.
Got
Dad,
to the-
Dad, what did you go? Dad, did you go?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's 4, 5, and 6 buy 7, 8, 9, rent, and I don't never really want to see the first 3.
All right. I think that's going to be the consensus answer here.
Yes.
My only thing that I would say is that if 8 had been great and not broken,
I like how
Star
you're like
Wars,
pretending like you're not talking about The Last Jedi by calling it 8.
if just because if The Last
about
Jedi was great, I would have been prepared to challenge the original trilogy with the new trilogy, but it can't.
That's true.
So
Right. So that's why it's a red.
I will say in each trilogy, the one that I have the least disparity between the entries, like I love watching A New Hope and I love watching Return of the Jedi. I don't really like rewatching Empire Strikes Back. I love Force Awakens. I love Rise of Skywalker. Going to pretend Last Jedi never happened, although I recently rewatched it. I feel almost about the same of the prequels 1 to 3, except I kind of like Revenge of the Sith more. So that's a more even experience of not really being impressed. Okay, now let's talk about some of these big time trilogies: The Godfather, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings.
What do you want to talk about?
Buy, rent, or meh.
Oh, you can't. That's not.
The Godfather.
That's not possible.
You have to be forced.
Oh,
You said
Becky, I feel like it's very
I'm
decisive
gonna
here.
buy Back to the Future because I find it's the most rewatchable. Lord of the Rings is a huge emotional. It's like a huge investment of just like time and energy.
True story.
Back to the Future, just can put it on over and over. I'm gonna rent Lord of the Rings because if you are gonna sit down and do an epic, how much fun is that? And I'm sorry, as much as I love the first Godfather, for me the whole trilogy is not as rewatchable as the other two we've mentioned. So that's my order.
Agreed.
I go Lord of the Rings, then Back to the Future, then Godfather.
Somehow Lord of the Rings is like a movie much watched in your household, which I find amazing.
Even though you have very small children.
There's something about I love Back
I want
to
to bring something up quickly about Shai showing this to his children. When I mentioned it recently about, wow, you showed that to your kids when they were really young. He's like, yeah, exactly. So they didn't get how scary it was.
Yeah, that's
so
totally
they could just
true.
watch it. And I'm like, so better to show them, what are they called? Orcs?
Well, no, but
when they're
I
like
also
3
showed
and
them
4 years
behind the
old than
scenes.
8.
I showed them behind the scenes and how the orcs were made. But I tried rewatching it with them recently. They got scared. They made me turn it off. So, but now it's already
now they
in their
understand
psyche.
that it's terrifying.
It's now in their psyche. Okay, let's talk about some spoofs, some comedy trilogies. So we've got The Naked Gun, Austin Powers, and I'm gonna audible the third one, and I'm gonna put the Pitch Perfects in there. Naked Gun, Austin Powers, Pitch Perfect. How would you go with those? And I think what's interesting is each one of those trilogies has a very mediocre third entry in it.
Okay, so for me, Pitch Perfect I would buy because it's just fun and I can turn it on and watch parts of it, watch all of it. I just enjoy it. What were the other two again?
Austin
Naked Gun,
Powers and
meh.
Naked Gun.
and Austin
Well,
Powers.
Naked Gun I can say meh, and Austin Powers red. I mean, I really, even when they first came out, Naked Gun, it was funny the first time. I got the
think
joke.
Naked Gun is very specific for the 10 and 12-year-old boys my age.
I agree with Mom, and if you need to mute us for the rest of the conversation, I'm changing a baby diaper, so it might get noisy here.
Okay.
Well, for me, Austin Powers would be the buy because maybe I'm so old that I grew up with The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and
Do you remember you liked
Get
Austin
Smart.
Powers? I don't remember if you liked it or not.
I did. I did mainly because I found it for me. It was such a great satire of the spy movies that it really struck me. And I thought, of course, Mike Myers, the number of characters he plays and the ways in which he plays them, I think should be honored as one of the greatest acting jobs ever. So I would go with that first. Yeah, I like the singing a lot. What's the Pitch Perfect? After a while,
You like a cappella?
I love a cappella. I think it's the singing, not the storylines, that put it in the Ren category. And I think you're right. I love the first Naked Gun, but I don't think I ever was motivated to watch the sequel.
Part deux. I remember when It came out.
No, that's Hot
Love
Shots
me,
Part 2.
I mean, that was
Hot Shots. Oh,
Yeah, there's no third Hot Shots, otherwise it would have been
Oh.
considered here.
I confuse those two movies. I guess it's Charlie Sheen. You're right.
Well, they were all.
I confused.
I think they were made by the same people. Hot
Yeah.
Shots and Naked Gun.
So,
At
so
the
what
time-
I think, Roger, the best part of this is that we live in the same household. So what I buy and you rent, and then you buy and I rent, it's great. We have
Very
all of them.
cute. You're very cute. That's my logic about it too. That's very cute.
Does Mom think that she's getting these movies when the episode's over?
I guess. I was like,
I think we have them already in the iTunes anyway, right?
We have almost.
There's
all
no
these.
Friday night movie like Oprah's giveaway, and you get Naked Gun, and you get. I will say that Austin Power, like Pitch Perfect, whatever. The first one was good. I definitely didn't see the other ones. I didn't know there was 3.
Pitch Perfect.
And yeah, is
Pitch
there
Perfect
3?
2 is amazing. Pitch
Oh,
Perfect
maybe
2
I
is-
saw it in the background.
You have to rewatch
Whatever.
Pitch Perfect 2.
I feel like that Austin Powers, even if the third one isn't great, that movie, gosh, I would assume I've laughed in a comedy since, but do you remember how hard you laughed during that first movie?
It was pretty
Like Mike
revolutionary.
Myers is like doing a disservice to humanity by not like being in more stuff.
Right.
Like I'm sure the man deserves to like enjoy his money and like be Canadian and like hang out with his family or whatever he does. But like it's a disservice to mankind. Like he should just make us laugh. So yeah, that I'll just buy. And then yeah, I guess rent Pitch Perfect so I could watch the second and third one. And then Naked Gun. The first one's great, but I was not a fan of I didn't think it was that funny as a kid.
So for me, it's bye Pitch Perfect. Even the third one's bad.
Go
The
all
first
in with
two
the
are
movie.
so important to me. I have to keep them with me whenever I travel on my devices. So that's one. I'm gonna go 2 with Naked Gun. I really don't like the third Naked Gun. It is not a good movie. It is very bad, in fact. But I rewatched some Leslie Nielsen stuff from that era, and some of the Naked Gun jokes were just so classic and so funny at the time. And then Austin Powers, I really like. I like the first 2. The third one, it almost feels like they didn't finish shooting the movie, so it doesn't make any sense. The third one doesn't make any sense, and so I'm gonna go with that as my order. All right, what?
One factoid about the Naked Gun movie is that one of the things that made it notable when it hit the screen, it was Leslie Nielsen, who was considered to be a very serious actor of his time, doing this slapstick comedy, and at the moment, there was an additional impact. If you could think of who's the most dramatic actor,
Ian
today.
McKellen.
Ian McKellen playing comedy. It almost had a little bit of an effect like that.
You mean like doing Cats?
Yeah.
Well, no.
Close.
Listen here.
Ricky Gervais's Cats joke at the Golden Globes was great.
It was great, but it was funny. He made fun of cats less than everything else. He had one Cats joke.
Because he probably is like you, and he's like, I love cats. I can't really make fun of it. He probably felt loyal. So Becky loved it. He's British. They love the theater.
So is there a trilogy we haven't mentioned? Like for me, I just want to give a little shout out to Mighty Ducks 1, 2, and 3. I think Mighty Ducks 3...
I thought that those were going to be Becky's favorite when she mentioned her.
Mighty Ducks 3 is an underrated gem, considering that they got only Estevez is only in there for a cameo towards the end. I always loved them going to the prep school and Mighty Ducking there. I mean, at that point, there's not even a relationship to the name of the team as the Mighty Ducks. But, anyways, what about you guys? Are there any other trilogies you think should have been mentioned?
A trilogy? Was Home Alone a trilogy? Was there
There
3 or
is a
6?
third Home Alone movie, but I don't think it counts. It doesn't have any of the...
It's one of those where you boat off the island, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that one counts. Although I guess technically it's a trilogy. I don't even like Home Alone 2 that
What
much.
about the one with Billy Crystal, the cowboy, the dude ranch one?
There's 3 of those? City
There's
Slickers?
two.
I don't know.
There's 2.
No,
There's 2 of them. Okay. What do you call
They knew
daddy
to
called
quit
them-
while they were ahead with the City Slickers.
Your dad called them fourologies or fourthologies or
Well,
something?
one
What
of
do you
the
call
words
it when
I heard
there's
is
2?
a quadrilogy, but I think that's a made-up word.
Duopoly.
Duopoly.
Oh, I would believe that.
So
duopoly.
now let's, our listeners have not gotten their update on Australian and or British
Dad, I have to
lawyer
tell you, Dad,
investigation shows.
I met somebody who's British. Her family's British and she lives here. And somehow it came out that her last name was Rake. And it took me everything in my being to not be like, my dad is obsessed with a show that has that name.
Okay.
And I guess it's a real British last name about British lawyers. Is it based on your
It's
family?
Australian, Lily.
Is Rake Australian?
Yes.
Yeah, but
So,
they're
Dad,
like.
what are Dad's? I want to know Dad's latest recommendations in the.
Okay, well, you've come to the right spot. Netflix, the series, and I think it's a series that has the kinds of legs for many, many episodes. That's right.
Like thinking as a cartoon,
That's
who's a guest on our podcast.
The series is called Traitors, and I highly, highly recommend it because it takes place in a period that is
Traitors. What's it about?
Traitors. It's a period of history that's not often examined. It's the
Is
end
it
of
traitors like a traitor to someone or trading?
No, traitors to countries. So it's the end
Okay.
of World War II. It's the formation of the post-World War II spy services, agents turning agents into double agents, and it's from a history buff. It does a deep dive in some of the events of those days, which is really interesting. It's extremely well played, and I think it's set up to run several more series.
So one season.
Yeah, one season. I think it's 6 episodes called Traitors.
Very
It's British.
cool. All right. Any other ones?
I'm working on
I'm almost
stuff, but
not British, American, but I'm almost done with The Magicians.
You and
Oh,
Josh,
seasons.
you and
It's
Josh
very
Crew have
popular.
the same. Josh has the same TV show taste as a. Are you middle-aged, Mom? What do you count as now?
Well, if I'm going to
Senior?
live to be 120, I'm middle-aged.
Senior Jewish lady, because he texts me all the time. I'm watching The Magicians. I love it so much.
You get hooked. I've watched. I'm down to the last 3 episodes of 4 seasons.
There must be like
in
100.
the last
There
month.
seriously must be 100 episodes, and she has watched
No,
them
40.
all.
No, there's like 50 episodes altogether. But it's really engaged. Like you really get hooked. It's actually way better than Dark Crystal
yet-
or some of the other crap that's
Whoa.
on television.
Whoa, careful, you're gonna hurt Shai's feelings.
I'm sorry,
Now,
Shai.
keep in mind, she has watched all 50 to maybe 100 episodes while still doing all my laundry, cooking all my meals, caring for my
If
children.
there's somebody who's going to find time to watch TV, it's Shy and Mom.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure like
Their
Mom does all
priorities
the
are
house
not messed
chores.
up.
I am.
Pretty
They got
sure
their
Mom does
priorities
all, like, the
straight.
I'm very happy you did not leave me out of that, Lily. That means a lot
It's
to
both
me.
of you.
Okay,
Both
but
of
I
you.
also I want to
Don't
use
mess
this as a segue into Mom has been able to watch all of these episodes because of her trusty AirPods. So she always has her AirPods in with like an ep going, which leads me to my own very special edition of Buy Rent Meh of Mom's Visit. And I would like to
I'm buying it all. There is no
buy-
man. I
would
watch
like
all
to
of your
buy the
visit, Mommy.
fact. I would like to buy the fact that she has been here for 6 weeks and not lost her AirPods. I'm going to give that a buy.
That's huge. Bravo.
I've misplaced them a few
So you
times.
haven't lost them. I'm going to meh all the broken things in my house because getting help comes at a price.
He has a
What
list.
was
She's
broke?
been
But I have replaced
like
everything
so
that
many
I broke.
dishes, a Cuisinart, like just things, like pieces
things.
missing things. So, I'm gonna rent that because I think that getting as much help as she's given me does come at a price, and I'm willing to pay that price. And I'm gonna mend the fact that she's leaving
Oh,
because I would like you to stay forever.
No tears, please.
that is a
They're gonna
great.
they're gonna do a wiggle dance. They're gonna wiggle their tush when I leave.
That is a great surprise by Renter Man. Lil, what are you
Your
watching?
homeowner's insurance will go down.
What are you,
Other than that, it's worth it to have.
Lil, what do you recommend or
Mom, I'm
disrecommend?
gonna not recommend this show to you, okay? I'm gonna recommend it to everybody else, but not to you. I don't think you could deal with the confusion in this show.
Which show?
Oh no.
The Witcher?
The Witcher, like,
Vlad and I, we had to actually
it is
stop it
so
after 20 minutes.
confusing.
I need
It's
a
so
guidebook.
Have you
Yeah.
more than one.
This
I've
is
done the first
Magicians isn't
episode. I've gone through the
confusing.
first episode. Would you recommend continuing?
I do recommend continuing. You just it's very difficult to figure out when things happen. So it's just really hard, or what is happening. I don't know. I still liked it.
I feel like
I
it's the
liked
type
it.
of show where I can't watch it at the end of the day when I'm tired. I need to watch it like first thing in the morning after a cup of coffee, as if it's my job. I'm going to sit down and pay attention because it was so hard to follow.
You mean like Game of Thrones hard?
It was so much
No,
harder. But then
it's
again,
not.
my brain
Because
is
it's not about Game of Thrones is hard because it's just so many characters and so many relationships. There's not that many characters in this. It's just hard to figure out what's a flashback and what's happening in the present. So if like the main character's in danger, or a character's in
Could
danger.
you make an app though that just flashed
No,
on the screen and told you?
You could. Becky sent me a timeline broken down, but it has spoilers of when things happen.
But if I don't understand the show, how could anything be spoiled?
Yeah, how can
I
you
feel
make
like I
the
should
difference
just read
between
it.
the Nilfenglom
Maybe
and
Dad
the
also. There's not that much spoilers in it. So if I send it to you, Dad, maybe you'll enjoy watching it.
Okay.
But like having the guide.
Okay, so
You
I
can-
have to say
timeline
something.
is a bit
If
rough.
you like witches and you don't want complication, then just watch Magicians.
Engaged.
Plenty
You're
of
so
witches in
cute.
that show. Mom and Josh should have their own podcast
Where they talk
reviewing-
about-
reviewing.
Hey, listen, he recommended Fringe, and that was a massive éxito, as I say in Spanish. It was a great success. So, if he likes Magicians and I like Magicians, I think it's a recommendation for all of you.
I have one more thing I need to throw down here, and it's pretty important.
I'm waiting.
Speaking of shows and what we've been watching,
I'm waiting.
Don't say Riverdale.
I need to throw down a very, very big, an epically sized big I Told You show to Lily.
Ah!
Lily, you are a
one
genius.
like once a year.
For what?
I resisted the politician, but then I finally succumbed after so much bullying from Lily, and I have to tell you, I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was going to be overly stylized and kind of like and phony. I thought like that was the impression I got from the previews, but it was so well done, such thoughtful characters, wonderful arcs. It was a great story that holds for the world that these characters are living in, but then also you understand is just it's a way to tell a much bigger story about our culture and politics, and it was.
I think it's
it
a
was
great.
so.
I think it starts a lot of conversations too. Dad,
and
I
I gotta
recommend
tell
you see
you-
that, and Mom.
And,
I recommend.
and I gotta tell you,
We've watched, I think, at least I've watched 3 episodes.
I gotta tell you, Team Ben Platt, that guy.
He's very good.
I like some Ben Platt.
Also, can someone do some research and tell me if the guy that plays Ricardo is related to Lou Diamond Phillips? Because I swear they look so much alike. Like, it
This
reminds
is
me of
Becky's
Lou Diamond
weird
Phillips
shtick.
so
Like
much.
Becky has this bizarre obsession of finding 2 random actors that have nothing to do with each other, and she's like, those guys are siblings. Like they look alike. Like Becky has like this weird
Becky has
facial
Lou Diamond Phillips on
recognition.
the brain because he played a major role in
He's
You're
in-
the Worst.
I mean, a small cameo, but sure, a major role.
Which is, well, sort of, you're right, not a major role. It was in 1 episode. But I would say that's my recommendation is You're the Worst. Allie and I finished the finale yesterday. Really crept up, not crept up on me. It was a show that I had originally not intended to watch, but then we watched in prep for the Janet episode. And it really, it goes up there with Catastrophe for me. I think the ending, I was relieved that the ending was much happier than I expected to. It wasn't like a perfect, everything in life is perfect ending, but it was a much... You are well served by watching all the way to the end of that show because they bring you out of the depression at the end, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel that pays off very well. I think in that last episode, I think it was a show that there was a lot of complicated things to to tie up, but it's a show that tackled mental illness in a way that I hadn't really seen before. The acting is off the charts for a show that's technically a comedy. It's an amazing drama, and and Aya Cash, and God, the guy who plays Jimmy, who's
Chris
Greer, Chris Greer are amazing.
Is he related to Richard Gere?
No, not
It's
Greer.
Oh.
Greer.
Where's Richard Gere?
There's
Thank you,
another
Mom.
one.
Where is he? I'd love to see him.
There's another one that I'm gonna watch another episode.
Now
of
that's a
because
buttery voice. Richard Gere has a buttery voice.
There's another one I
You
wanted
do a
to.
whole thing on
Let
buttery
him
voice.
talk. The guy
Shy.
has trying to talk.
You brought this on yourself because there was nothing about this show that said it was going to be good.
Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist is starring Jane Levy and Ben Platt sideman, Skylar Ashton, also known as Skylar Ashton Lipstein, and Peter Gallagher and Lauren Graham. And it's this show. It's a show that I didn't realize was a drama. I thought it was going to be a comedy, but it's a 45-minute drama. And it's a show where
Another mistake. Somebody should have told them.
a woman
Not
can
necessary.
she can read people's mind, but the music that would be playing in their mind, it could have been like The Good Place meets the
Medium.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend or something. Medium. If she was solving mysteries with songs, it probably would be better. And I love all of the actors in this so much, but the first episode I was watching with Allie and some friends, and as every moment proceeded, there was just a lot of spoon feeding, and then Peter Gallagher, whose character is non-communicative, his imagination gets up and he sings True Colors, and it could have been
a bit much.
It could have been amazing, and it was whew. So I'm going to try to watch another episode, but it's sadly a meh for me. All right, Lil, did you have one?
Yeah, I had The Witcher, which I finished,
Oh, yeah.
and if anybody else is interested. And I recommend watching the documentary I Am Swayze about Patrick Swayze.
Oh, I want to see
I want to see
I
that.
laughed, I cried. I really recommend it.
And I need to do a follow up on our 2019 wrap up. In that, I said that even though I had not seen Little Women, it would be one of my favorite movies of the year. I finally saw it, and yes, correct, it is one of my favorite movies of the year. I thought it was masterful. It was Greta Gerwig. She has
That's awesome.
just created something so beautiful and moving, and a unique script and style of storytelling style.
The way she told the story was different.
So speaking
sounds like
of
you have
things
a
we have
guinea
to come
pig
back
on your
to,
lap.
I have to do a correction. Even though I still believe, this is Star Wars related, Palpatine created Anakin.
God.
They're all over
I'm
the
not
place.
even
And I
the
said that it was
It's like
admitted.
Hudgy.
It was admitted in an episode of Darth. No, people come up to me and they say, "What do you mean Anakin was created by?" I've always stood by that, and I still stand by it. But in Darth Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith, there's a panel in the comic in which we see the Emperor. I'm reading this on movieweb.com. The Emperor Palpatine behind a pregnant Shmi Skywalker. The way the images are laid out, they seem to imply that Palpatine was directly involved in his creation, which sent some Star Wars fans hunting for clues. And then the Star Wars people, officially came out and said that this is not the case, and that they seem to be still playing. They seem to still be haven't. Okay, they say that he literally doesn't say that. And even if he literally said,
is there an end to this rabbit hole?
hold on.
Lost sight.
I was just going to say that I'm pretty sure you think you're doing a service to the listeners.
The point is that they've left it ambiguous, and while I reported news before, which we rarely ever report, it is still unconfirmed. For those
So
who
it's
are.
a correction.
But it's what
so
you
you're doing
believe.
a correction.
It is
You're
still what I
leaning
believe, so I
into
want
the
to
fact
clarify
that he
that
is-
because
you
more than
got
one
worried
person
that
has
they-
heard our
They
Rise of
trashed your
Skywalker.
theory.
More than one person has heard our Rise of Skywalker episode and asked me this specific question and say, "What do you
Okay,
mean?"
so even though it's unconfirmed, you're leaning into that theory.
I will always believe that theory. It
Okay.
doesn't need to be confirmed. Also,
But it's a better theory.
It's
I
a
don't-
great theory.
I don't need everything explained. I like having theories.
Also, I'll take this conversation offline or save it for next week. Got some more Star Wars stuff, but anyway,
we'll
time
stretch
to
it
wrap
out.
up.
Okay. Mom, Dad, it has been a pleasure having you here. Do you want people to follow you on social media or anything like that?
I mean, they could try at Inner Wonder, but I don't do much except react to stuff you put on.
Okay, so for Mom's reactions to stuff we put on, Dad?
I can be followed at Rud and Pine.
All right. Becky, where can people follow you?
On Twitter at PaperBKPrincess. Do it now while I'm on mat leave. I'm replying to tweets. I'm reacting to things. Got a couple more months, and then I'm going dark.
And Lily.
Chichi K Gomez. That's CHICHI K Gomez on Twitter.
And you can follow me at Pancake4Table. That's Pancake, the number 4 table, on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow all of the Friday Night Movie shenanigans at Fry Night Movie on Twitter and Instagram, or FridayNightMoviePod.com. If you have not gotten enough of us, there are some recent appearances we have done. Becky and I guested on the All Bros podcast with Rose and Caleb, and we did a 2.5-hour episode on the movie Cats. So we've talked about cats on this podcast, but nowhere will you get a more in-depth an exciting conversation than our appearance on the All Bros podcast. And I recently appeared on the Gov Geeks with Javier and Karen, two amazing people we met at All-Star Comic-Con. They mix a combination of awesome geek fandom with being dedicated public servants and talking about people who have had careers in public service. So I got to do both of them, and they are amazing. The theme song shall kick in for our show, and it is by What Does It Eat? And we will talk again soon. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye. The original 5 together.